So hi Ganesh, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, thank you. So this mock interview, the intention behind this mock interview is to help you with the API testing and manual testing questions. And even if you don't know the answer, feel free to ask. The basic intention, one more thing is like we want to, have the confidence in yourself. Like whenever you face the interview, you give the answers over there. So you don't face any challenges in all those things. Okay. So can you tell me something about yourself?
Yeah. So myself, Ganesh Borse. Actually, I'm basically from Navapur, Maharashtra,
Mhm.
and I have completed my master degree from Pune. And about my career, I have almost 5 years of experience in functional testing, then API testing, backend testing with SQL skill. And as a tester, I'm primarily responsible for the means analyzing the requirement and creating test cases, scenario execution those, logging the defects, tracking the defects. And apart from them, as a part of tool, I have worked on Jira and as well as Bugzilla in past as well. So this is about me. Yeah,
Okay, sounds good. So in-depth level of experience, right, in testing, 5+ years in functional testing. Okay.
yeah,
So
almost five.
how about any defect that you feel that you had found in the application or in the software that was very special? Would you like to share that
Uh,
experience?
yeah, there are so many such defects I found in my career.
Okay.
So actually, I am in a banking domain. Okay,
Okay.
so most of the times there are different products, just like a minor product, then joint applicant, primary applicant. So most of the time there is a criteria is defined, right? So for joint applicant, the age criteria should be less than 18, right? So one day means I found that defect and that defect was very critical. Means even though the date criteria is not matching to the person and the person is having age 50, he also can open the minor account and he can take the benefit of minor accounts, whatever benefits are
Right.
there, right?
Mhm.
So this defect was there. This was the critical defect and I found in my career.
Okay.
Yeah, and after that, yeah,
Cool. So what is the difference between REST and SOAP API?
REST API and SOAP API. Okay. In the SOAP API will support only the XML format. This
Mhm.
is the main thing. But REST API will support the different format, just like JSON format, XML format, and
Mhm.
text format.
Mhm.
And when we will transfer the data in XML format, it will take the more bandwidth in SOAP API. But in REST API, it will not that much bandwidth, it will not consume. So it is, so we can say like cheaper to send the data over the network.
Mhm.
Then after that, the SOAP is the simple object transfer protocol, and it's an architecture. We can say like that, it's representational transfer. Yeah, REST. And then yeah, we can, and again here we can use the generic methods, means generic protocol we can use in SOAP, but in REST we can use the HTTP and HTTP secure protocol in REST. Uh, yeah, and then again we have a different types of HTTP methods,
Mhm.
get, post, put, delete,
Right.
can use the, both of
Mhm.
them.
Right. So all the differences that you had mentioned are proper. So we started with SOAP supports only XML format, and REST supports different data formats. Then REST is faster than SOAP, so that much faster is not that SOAP compared to REST. Now SOAP is also like a custom desktop application that is closely connected to server, and SOAP runs on HTTP. While REST uses the HTTP
Yes.
headers to hold the meta information. And REST client is nothing but a browser, and it is more of a service architecture based, and it is designed for, I would say, kind of network based software architecture, something, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
Then
I
even caching is not supported in SOAP, but in REST it is supported. Okay. Now,
Yes, yes,
whenever
yes.
your client or customer tells you that you have to perform so and so API testing for some API or something, then how do you test it? What all things do you test in that?
Okay. So generally, the developer or client will provide the URL or URI. Okay. So endpoint they will provide, right? So we need to provide that request in our SOAP or SOAP UI. And apart and along with that, if we will see if there any key parameter or path parameter is there, then we will attach that key parameter and path parameter in the SOAP UI itself. We are having a drop down values also there, and we can mention in URL also there. Now path parameter we can mention by using slash symbol, and then query parameter we will mention by using a question mark symbol. Miss, let's give an example like that. Suppose I wanna find the weather of Pune city. Okay, so weather is my path parameter and value is my city is equal to Pune. So Pune is my value. We'll mention in question mark. And after that, we need to click on hit button and then we'll get the response in different format there. Now, suppose I have selected a JSON, then there I can see the response code. So response code, if suppose if it is okay, then we'll get a 200 code. If in case I have provide a post method, then I will get the 201 created. So these are the different types of method is there. Is 400, 401 is for unauthorized, 403 for forbidden, then 400 for bad request, then 500 for internal server error, like that. 503 service unavailable, 504 gateway timeout, like that. Then after that, we can see the how much time it takes to the run. Response time we can check. Then response size also we can see there. Yeah, and the size of the API also we can see in the response. So these are the validations generally we will perform there.
Yeah, very true. So starting from the parameters, then data accuracy, whatever the HTTP status codes are there, response time, error codes, authorization checks, and then non-functional testing also, like if you can do performance testing and security testing in all these APIs. Those all things need to be verified in API testing. Now, what are the main
Yes,
challenges that you have faced doing API testing?
Um, yeah. So most of the time means we will get the service errors there. Then sometimes we are having the bad request while providing the requirement while collecting the requirement from the dev side or from the client. So they will not give the correct requirement or they will not give the correct URI. So bad data is there. So most of the times we'll get the bad request or bad error 400. So we need to make sure that first we need to analyze that. We need to figure out whether the all the data or all the requirement is proper or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is the most of the issues I'm facing. This in requirement. Sometimes what will happen, I'll get the misunderstand. The requirement I will understand it's a wrongly, but it is not wrong way. And sometimes developer build into the wrong way. So some
Right.
misunderstanding is there regarding to the requirements.
Mhm. Also, sometimes, categorizing the parameters properly is also a problem. And then you have to put a proper sequencing is required. Otherwise, it might lead to inadequate, coverage in testing. So those kind of
Yes.
sequences, like all the APIs has to be mentioned in proper sequence. Otherwise, if one API will fail, so the rest of the things also might fail. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So these are few of the things. Mhm. Now, what is the difference between top to down, and bottom up approach in SOAP web service?
Yeah, so in top down, suppose in the business logic or in the app, in the modules, my upper module is built or it's verified or it's working fine, but my lower modules is not working. So we will make the stub or driver in that case, and we will connect through, we will integrate it, and then we will perform the API. So that is my top down. And in bottom up the same way, but in reverse, vice versa. My bottoms model or my business logic is performed for the lower modules, but it is not performed for the upper modules. So in that case, again, I'll use the drivers and I will integrate with that. and I'll take the inputs.
Right. So which one would be easier to implement, from that perspective? Is it good to go for top-down approach or is it good to go for a bottom-up approach?
Top down as per
Top-down.
me.
Okay. I have heard that top-down approach is bit, difficult to implement because the classes must be written to confirm the, contract that is defined in the that WSDL.
Yeah, we still.
Mhm. Right. So which one will you choose to go for?
Yeah, so in that case, we'll go for bottom up.
Right. Bottom-up is good, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, which test cases are written first? Let's say if you are being given, manual testing task. So which set of test cases will you write first? Will you go for black box testing first, or will you go for white box testing first, and why?
Uh, yeah, so if in case as of now I'm not into the white box testing,
Mm-hmm.
but if as a tester I'll go for the white box testing because I need to make sure that whether my code is working fine or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then if it is code is working fine, then after that only we can perform the functional testing. Black box testing is nothing but the functional testing, right? So if my code is working fine, my path is working fine, then i I'll perform the white box, and after that I'll go for the functional. And in that functional testing we are having a different testings, means a unit testing is kind of the,
Right.
we can say,
Mm-hmm.
white box, but integrations, smoke, these are the kinds of functional testing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So generally what happens in companies, they after writing the code, they'll have some peer reviews and they'll have unit testing also with that. So once the
Yeah.
things are coming into the testing, what is our responsibility is we have to ask the developers what is the percentage of the unit test cases that you have written. If they are not confident about their unit testing, then we should go for white box testing first. We should check their code first because they themselves are not confident. But if they are confident and they tell you
Yes.
that, Ganesh, I have got 80% to 70% to 80% of unit test cases coverage, almost all the things have been done, even mockups have been implemented. Now there are few error conditions that we cannot handle by code also. Some limitations are there. Then we can go for black box testing because almost that
Yeah.
guy has worked for 70 to 80% of unit testing. So almost he is thorough from his side. He is confident from his side. So we can start with black box test cases in that. So it is, a scenario based thing that can come up in the organization. It depends to project. Sometimes
Yes.
testers are involved with the developers also to do unit testing. And
Yeah.
and whenever you test the code, you see the internal structure of the code. So that is nothing but a white box testing. But in these days, everywhere agile methodology is followed, and there is nothing like developer or tester. So together,
Yeah.
people have started, the
One
professionals have
team.
started working as one team, one goal. So whichever, it depends on project to project more often. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay then. So what is the workbench concept in software testing? Have you heard about that thing, workbench?
Workbench.
Yeah.
No, Rakesh, I haven't come across this term as of now.
Okay. Okay.
Could you please
So
give me some hint?
yeah, yeah, sure. So it is related to some kind of documentation thing.
Okay. Workbench. No, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it is, more of covered in test strategy, test plan, but this is just another term that I used. And it is nothing but, documenting how a specific testing activity needs to be performed. It is often referred as test phases, test steps, testing task or testing subtask whenever, tester logs the task in Jira. So they'll mention all the activities so that client can know that this particular tester has taken so and so amount of time for completing the task. So which are the different tasks and how they are going to perform that. So all those documentation is nothing but workbench. This is, I would say, more of a documentation thing that you are going to do XYZ activity and in 5 steps or 10 steps, and this is how the sequence is going to be.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So what is random testing?
Yeah, so random testing we also called as monkey testing.
Mm-hmm.
If in case we are not sure about the requirements and we do not have that much time, so we will perform the random testing. We will provide the negative test cases, random test cases, and whatever we will come into the mind, that time we will perform the testing. Means if suppose we have provided the application to the client, right, or end user, so he will not perform the happy part testing, he will give the random inputs and he will test. So that is called a random testing, because also called it as gorilla testing for random.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So what is the difference between error seeding and error guessing?
Error seeding and error guessing. Okay, so error seeding is nothing but, now suppose we have built the one software, and at a certain point we are not able to figure out the more defects. So knowingly we will feed the defects, or we will say like that, we will insert the defects. Feeding is nothing like that, inserting an unknowingly defects, and by validating that, maybe some chances is there, we can find more defects, right? So we will seed the defects into the application. So that is the error seeding. And error guessing is nothing but, by our knowledge or by our under testing knowledge, we will just guess the error. Yeah, sometimes I may find the defect is here, so sometimes I find, so this is a error guessing.
Right. So based on your expertise level, you'll be able to judge and find the defects, proactively. So
Yes.
that is error guessing. And error seeding is nothing but introducing the defects to find out more defects or finding the root cause analysis of some defect. Okay. So
Yes.
let's say you are working in a team and you have got 3 to 4 junior uh, testing people who are working with you, and there is a conflict in the team. So how will you resolve that conflict?
Yeah, so first of all, I will try to figure out where is the exact conflict is going on,
Hmm.
whether it is related to personal issues or it is related to the work issues. Okay, if it is related to the work issues, then I will arrange some sessions or some meetings on, and if it is they are not understanding the requirements or they are having some problems, then I will arrange the sessions and I'll try to give us some brainstorming sessions over there, and I will try to resolve their problem, right? And again I'll ask them for the reverse KT or for the sessions, if they are really able to understand or not that points, and once they are cleared about things, so maybe there is no conflict after that.
Mhm. Okay, sounds good. So how do you keep yourself upgraded? Like, let's say if any new software has come up in the market, and how will you make sure that you are knowing the relevant information about that software? Because software testing is our bread and butter. So if anything gets introduced, we need to know it. We need to have the knowledge. Sometimes we have to implement those things in the organization itself, or for longer career run also. It is good to have all those kind of awareness within ourselves. So how do you keep yourself upgraded?
Yeah, so first of all, actually, I have started my career from the ETL testing. So that time means almost I was into 2 years for the ETL or for SQL. So I used to refer the different websites for SQL, like Site and W3 SQL. I used to go through it, I used to learn it, and I used to refer the YouTube videos, just like your videos. Then again, some more YouTube channels are there, and then after that I moved to means API testing and this functional testing. So there also I used to attend the different meetings or trainings provided by the companies. So I'll try to register those and I'll try to get clear my concepts from my senior members or senior colleagues or leads. And again, if I'm not able to understand, again I go through the some websites or some blogs, and I'll go through the LinkedIn post. So we will get the most of the updated knowledge or updated some things there in LinkedIn as well. So this is my approach.
Right, that was a very good answer. So I have seen, even I am following LinkedIn very much, and you'll come to know more of the things, from LinkedIn or from other people's posts or from the connections that you are following, even YouTube. So YouTube and LinkedIn are, contributing a lot towards all these areas. Okay, then.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is the difference between load testing and stress testing?
Yeah. So these both are the types of the performance testing. So in that we will measure the response time and speed of the application. So in load testing, we will measure the suppose my application is designed for the 100 users. So I will test with the 100 users or less than the 100 users. Okay, and in stress testing, I will uh, I will verify the more than the designed number of users.
Mhm.
Suppose my application is designed for 100 users, right? And I will provide more than 100 users, just like in 150, 160. So that is the stress testing.
Right.
Yeah.
So load testing is nothing but testing within the limit for the number of users within the limit, and stress is beyond the limit, going beyond the
Overkill.
limit. Okay then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ganesh, we are done with the interview. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, if it is good for me, if you'll ask for me from the SQL side, then it is also useful
Yeah.
for me to get more hands-on and more confident.